Show stress, who's the boss, though? How do you start on that one?
Well, I think that interesting words. I think that certainly the stressors. I mean, I was out here last time, Siobhan, in November, and have things changed over that time? I'd say certainly there are some changes. Is the economy going through challenging times? Yes, again, certainly it is. Are there techniques and strategies that will help the UA on its way into the upturn? Yes, of course there are. Because don't forget, I mean, I live in the UK, and we've been through recessions many times before. So the fact that this is global is different, no question of that. And is this a recession or a depression? That is a debate which we can have at another time. But certainly what I'm saying is that because we've been through it before, we do have the skills that have actually helped us over those years. So in some ways, it's a matter of me working out here, which I have been now for the past 3 years, and bringing some of that expertise to the region to ensure that some of those strategies are implemented and the anti-stress interventions are immediately put into practice to ensure that you come out of this one as quickly as possible.
Are these for personal stress issues, or are you talking more on a sort of macro corporate level?
I'm talking about corporate level. I'm talking about top teams at corporate level, because realistically it is the corporates, it is the top teams that actually have the pull, and they have the expertise to actually to ensure that it continues right throughout the business. They're the ones that actually you mustn't actually lose. Organisations must hold on to their existing top talent, because it is those people that are actually going to take them through this downturn to ensure that they come through to the upturn as quickly as possible. So what we do is we actually are talking to top teams, ensuring that they have the skills and the expertise to take them onto that next stage.
Can I ask though, one of the issues that I have with systems, with protocols, with tools and techniques, is that what I find happens is that they absolutely get involved in and prevent people from dealing with stress and all of the horrors of the pain of stress in their own personal way. So how do you manage to bridge the gap between the system that you're proposing and the personal effect that people have to consider?
What you're saying is exactly right. If you're going to look at processes and procedures and protocols, all those kinds of words, if they get in the way of managing the business, meaning the people, then they're of no value. Because they're purely being put in there, they're being implemented for the sake of implementation. And I'd say to you in that way, so there's nothing that's going to actually help in that way in terms of rolling it out to people. What we're looking at here is organisations who need to manage their people effectively, whether it's top team or whether it's people on ground floor level. Everyone's pulling together. We need to work towards what I call is a we culture, which is everybody working together for the good of the cause and going forward. If, as you say, that it's just systems and processes implemented, I was going to say, so what? It's just as simple as that. Just to actually have that down on paper, and just to do that as maybe a tick box exercise is going to be useless all the way around. That's actually not going to work. What is going to work are people who really do value their people, who do recognise the contribution that they're making, and are also aware that if those individuals are now doing two people's work as opposed to just their own work, to ensure that they're not overloading them, creating stress, and ensuring that it's solely pressure that they're putting on them. Because let's not forget what actually stress is. And there's sometimes a misnomer as to what stress is. People tend to think that stress is good for them. Well, I have news for everybody. It is not. Pressure is good for you. Pressure is what you can cope with, and pressure is what you can manage. It's when you have excessive pressure that actually becomes stress. So you don't actually want to go into the stress zone, because then people will be taking time off work and not working effectively. And what's your performance and productivity? Because it's going to go right down.
But isn't this, someone argue then that this is just a sense of appeasement? We're going to be appeasing your employees for a particular amount of time. One person may do the job of three people for a particular amount of time and probably will be grateful that they have a job. But how long can that go on for? Surely there must be an ongoing methodology or techniques that, maybe a few months down the line, they're going to say, we can't do this anymore. What happens then?
If that employer, if that manager is not valuing, as we spoke of before, their employees sufficiently, and they're not being genuine and looking out for some of those signs and symptoms of stress that may be there, and ignoring those signs and symptoms of stress, it's going to catch them out long term. Because that individual, if you think of us as we're the human body is a machine. It breaks down. And if we actually have a breakdown, it takes a very, very long time, if ever at all, for that individual to come back to working even half capacity, let alone full capacity. So therefore, it is absolutely up to the manager, the top team, to ensure they get the most out of their employees, get more for performance, get more productivity, but to the point where people do not break. Because if they break, they're going to be in a worse position in terms of the manager than when they first started out. So it's a fine balancing act. And obviously the other issue with stress is, and this is very difficult for managers to appreciate, is the fact that if you look at a stressful situation, for one person it may be pressure that they can cope with, that they can manage, that's in their control, and that's good for them, and that's okay. And for somebody else, the same situation could be seen and perceived and being experienced as stressful. How do you as a manager then manage that? And that is your challenge.
How do you, what's coming through for me here is the number of managers that it will be brought to light that they actually are not in touch with their workforce. So how do you actually deal with the management people who have been out of touch, and only now do they actually understand where there was a disconnection? And how long do you take to actually get them on board to understand what they have, the huge task they have to undertake?
I would say that has to be done very, very quickly, because time is of essence because of where the country is at the moment. We can't ignore that. It's fact. It doesn't mean we fall down because of it. We pick ourselves up. But I'd say that you say that managers are out of touch. I agree with you. How many managers do we all know that have actually been promoted into their positions because of their academic expertise? Not because they're people managers. So in some ways what you're saying there is, have they remained out of touch? And I'd say to you, yes, they probably have. Is now going to be the time to ensure that they are hands-on and in touch? Yes, it is. What can be done about it? Those very same managers now more than ever before have to be trained to manage their people. Because if they aren't and it doesn't happen, it is very, very short-sighted for any business to actually move forward. So the short-term strategy is we're going to pull up all the shutters. We're not going to have any training. We're not going to have any external support. Very parochial. We're going to do this all by ourselves. And I'm going to say that's okay. However, it's very, very short-sighted. You have to think outside the box. You have to think laterally. And if those individuals need that support and it's not available in-house, then you have to bring in the experts. Is it going to cost? Of course there's an investment. But what greater investment is there other than their own people?